No, 10:20 on Sundays.
Just Sundays.
Yeah. Okay, you're live.
Okay, Shavuot Tov to everybody. Anybody wants to look along, we have another copy.
I'm gonna ask your father-in-law to post it.
Okay, we're continuing in Siman Reish Nun Beis 252 regarding doing Malacha on Erev Shabbos that continues into Shabbos. We read one sif inside the Mechaber last week. We still have more to read inside, and I'm going to review for right now what we did last week, and we're going to continue from where we left off. Last week we introduced a famous debate between the school of Shammai and the school of Hillel in regards to whether, when the Torah commands a Jew to rest on Shabbos, although everyone's in agreement it's inclusive of his animals and slaves, is it also inclusive of his items that he owns? He said Beis Shammai took a stringent approach, and Beis Hillel took a lenient approach. Being that we rule like Beis Hillel, therefore, as we read inside the Mechaber, there is no prohibition in starting a Malacha on Shabbos, even though we'll continue, starting a Malacha on Erev Shabbos, even though we'll continue into Shabbos. And we said that the Chiddush is that even if you programmed for the entire Malacha to happen on Shabbos alone, page 74, it is permitted. Who remembers the case example we gave?
Even if you did, say it one more time.
Even if you programmed the entire Malacha to happen on Shabbos alone, it's permitted. Meaning before Shabbos, I set up that a Malacha will occur on Shabbos. Well, let's give the two examples we gave last week. First example was regarding where you started the Malacha before Shabbos and it simply continues into Shabbos, which is cooking dyes. We said you put dyes inside of a pot. You began cooking it before Shabbos. It's continuing to cook into Shabbos. The second case example where the entire Malacha is happening on Shabbos is with traps. You set up, and this is very practical. If you have a rat problem, which Tzemach does have, at least in my area, I don't know about anyone else. You guys get it? Mm-hmm. We have a big rat problem in our.
But I don't see it.
Well, we have a big rat problem in our side of the mountain, and so people all the time want rat traps, and they want to know if they want to leave it open on Shabbos, it's going to end up trapping it on Shabbos. And the answer is, to set it up before Shabbos is not a problem, but for example, let's say on Shabbos you realize it by mistake, some of the snap traps where it closes, it's like a little box and it snaps shut when the mice goes inside. It also snaps shut with wind, movement, the door slam. Can you lift it back up on Shabbos itself? Absolutely not. That's not a Malacha Deraisa necessarily because you didn't trap it that second. It's called Grama, but it's still Asur Midrabanan based on the Issa Deraisa of trapping. But can you set up before Shabbos? Absolutely. The base of that is this halacha, which is based on the Mishnah that we pass on like Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai would say, what are you doing? You're doing a malacha. Your vessel, your item is doing trapping on Shabbos. It's asur to do. But we rule like Beis Hillel, it is permitted to be done. Another example that would be asur to do is on Shabbos is, let's say I want to, I just saw the rat on Shabbos and it's in this corner. Can I just kick with a shinoi the box, the trap into his area? Absolutely not. Once again, you're doing an action on Shabbos. So that's the fine difference. The fine difference is the action happening on Shabbos or before Shabbos? Now, this can lead to a little bit of confusion. A person will think, well, I already opened the trap before Shabbos. All I'm doing is just moving it. He may not calculate and understand that this is now considered a malacha. And we're going to see that there is one case example that the Chachamim, well, there's a few, but there's one main case example. The Chachamim asked her to do something before Shabbos because people would not know the difference between Shabbos and before. They would come to do it on Shabbos itself if you allowed it before Shabbos. We're going to see.
What about the stipulation that the allowance for something that's really destroying your Shabbos and bothering your Shabbos? The rat's really you don't want it there because it's really bothering you. Like you said, a spider or something that you can scoop up and get rid of because it's bothering you.
So I really like what you're trying to propose. You're trying to propose basically that the Jewish religion is kept when it's comfortable. I'm all for that, but unfortunately, that's not the way God sent it to us. No, I'll explain. I'm making a joke, but you have some. I'm just trying to negate. You have some people who think people who don't know halacha, don't come to shiur and never learn. They think, rabbis have the right to just decide when it's uncomfortable for someone just to be lenient. Why are you so machmir? Why do you always say it's us? It's complete nonsense. There's no such thing. The only time we have a concept that we allow leniency in a time of discomfort is in a case where there are poskim who say it's mutar lechatchila. And even then, it's only if it's written in the poskim that you can, in a time of need, be lenient. So you need two conditions: A, the poskim say it's mutar, and B, that in a time of need, the poskim right you can be lenient. But it's not for everybody to just go and start go on Eitzer Chachma, which has 100,000 books, and look up an opinion. And in a time of need, so in a time of need, I'll eat pork. In a time of need, I'll go to McDonald's. So obviously that is not the derech. Now, what I believe you're referring to is muktzah. By muktzah, there's a special din. When the sages enacted the decree of muktzah, we learned that they said if something is nauseating, then we're going to suspend the muktzah restriction. So, for example, I see a dead mouse. Okay, a dead mouse sitting in my living room. It's a little nauseating. I'm allowed to get rid of it. It's muktzah, 100%. But it's called a graf shari. So we have a special heter regarding that. That heter doesn't allow you to kill the mouse on Shabbos or to kill the spider on Shabbos. It doesn't allow you to do any other malacha.
Get rid of it. I thought for sure.
What do you mean get rid of it? How are you getting rid of it?
Scoop it up and remove it. Just get it out.
Is it dead?
No, it's alive.
It's alive. First of all, number one, a live mouse? How are you going to scoop it up and get rid of it?
I was talking the case it was a spider or a giant
spider
ant was really bothering the Shabbos.
So yes, you have to be extremely careful about the laws of trapping. Let's say, for example, we once had a hornet on our Shabbos table many years back, and we had to leave the area for like a half hour till it left. There was no allowance to trap it. There's no allowance to trap it. You can't do a malacha. Trapping is a malacha. Even if it's only d'Rabbanan, you can't do it. There's no heter. Now, what you can do is, let's say an ant. An ant, that goes very slowly, is self-trapped. I mean, how do you trap an ant? It moves so slow, it's self-trapped. It's like trapping a turtle. It's like somebody chasing after a turtle. How do you chase after a turtle? It's self-trapped. A slug. These are self-trapped animals.
Put a scooper next to it.
Right. So correct. So if you put a scooper next to something like that, yes. But a mouse is very hard to catch. Very hard to catch.
Okay, so you could let
So for you to do that would be trapping. You understand the difference between a mouse and an ant?
Okay, but the
movements.
You put a dustbin.
Yeah, because it's self-trapped. What have you done? You've done nothing.
Well, it's walking. You put something in front of it that it walks onto, and then you take it out of the house.
That's fine. That's not
okay. Good.
So you can also take a broom, get the hornet to get onto your broom, and take it out of the house. You didn't trap it. You didn't do anything. Trapping is that you are now enclosing it in an area that it cannot move from.
No, the dustbin is that actually.
The ant doesn't know that. The ant has no clue he's trapped. We'll walk right off.
Okay, he walks around the dustbin. I always feel better about that actually. So walking around happy. So
just
getting
walk right off.
And Arizel's watching.
Right. So okay.
And Rabbi Goldstein.
Okay, so that's one of the issues that you may come to think that, hey, if this is allowed and this too allowed, nonetheless, Chachamim in this case did not make a decree. So there's no problem in setting up rat traps on Shabbos, but once again, you have to be very careful not to move it on Shabbos, etc. Okay. We're going to read one more halacha inside before we continue, because the Mechaber gives their few exceptions. I remember we concluded last week that we're going to learn some exceptions to the rule, meaning that the rule is it's mutar, as long as it was done before Shabbos. I do want to mention, we didn't mention this last week, but there are some Beis Shammai Chassidim that paskin like Beis Shammai. There are some poskim who say that if you cannot do something that will cause the entire malacha to happen on Shabbos. There are a few achreinim who hold that way. It's not a chumrah that's been accepted in the halacha. Could be have some very firm Jews who want to follow this opinion. So by the way, if they do, they will not use Shabbos clocks on Shabbos.
But then Mashiach is here.
Yeah, it's not so. I don't remember exactly what his argument was that suddenly he's following Beis Shammai right on that point. Once in yeshiva, when one of the students wanted to light, not wanted, he lit candles like Beis Shammai, going from 8 down. The yeshiva threw him out. It was in 770. The yeshiva threw him out. And he says, "You want to follow Beis Shammai? I'll act like Beis Shammai." Beis Shammai was
Yeah.
So.
He lit Shabbos candles? What did he do?
No, Hanukkah candles. The
Oh.
first night he lit 8 like Beis Shammai. He says, "We're already
yeah.
living in Yemei Mashiach." One of those guys.
Okay.
Anyways, okay. So there is such an approach. So if you do hear of such a thing, or maybe, sometimes rumors begin spreading. Oh, I heard you're not allowed to do something. So that's Beis Shammai. There are some poskim even of the last generation who were stringent like that, and they would not use Shabbos clocks on Shabbos. You do have some who don't use Shabbos clocks. Absolutely. But that's also mainly because of here in Israel, electricity is provided by Jews, which is Chilul Shabbos. So it's not just because of the issue of you're causing malacha to happen, an entire malacha to happen on Shabbos, but also because of the issue of that you're benefiting from Jewish malacha. There's Jews working in the Tachanat HaKoach, in the electric plant that produces electricity, and you're benefiting from that. There are also a few Chabad Rabbanim that I know that they won't. They use candles, which is kind of dangerous, but that's what they do. They don't have electricity on Shabbos. Okay.
Just in Israel, you know that happening?
I am not aware of that. I do know for sure in previous generations, everyone was machmir not to have Shabbos clocks on Shabbos, like in the 1800s, 1700s.
Lights, we were talking about lights.
Yeah, this is before.
Lights.
So it's something new, absolutely.
The worry about lights is only in Israel, where there's likely to be
Correct,
Jewish.
correct. That is correct. That issue is only in Israel, correct. Okay, so we read Sif Aleph. We're going to skip to Sif Hey, and then we're going to go back after we finish this whole sugya. So there's a few sugyas in the Siman that don't really have anything to do with each other, so we're skipping around a little bit. Sif Hey. Umotor liftayach mayim legina. So he began discussing doing malacha before Shabbos comes into Shabbos. Then he went on a little tangent for 3 sifim about mail. We'll get back to that later, sending mail. Now we're back to our subject. Sif Hey. It is permitted to open sprinklers on Shabbos. Sorry, before Shabbos. Of course, not on Shabbos. It's considered zriya to be, planting. But before Shabbos, it is permitted to open up sprinklers, even though they will continue and irrigate your plants and vegetables and fruits and etc. into Shabbos.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought you'd be careful about watering plants.
Well, again, he's not referring to what we have today in modern technology, where we have it on a clock. He's referring to here that you basically opened up an irrigation channel that now will allow it to be irrigated during Shabbos itself. But the idea is the same idea. The idea is the same idea, and based on this, it would be mutter to open up sprinklers. May one turn on the sprinklers before Shabbos, have it go into Shabbos. And furthermore, you can schedule it, because we already said we don't hold there's a difference between whether you started it before Shabbos or you programmed it to begin on Shabbos.
So therefore, water a plant before a half hour before Shabbos, the water's still going to be there.
Yeah, that's what we just said.
Then, right?
Yes, of course, that's what we just said. Absolutely. Okay. We're saying even furthermore, you can even set up sprinklers. Right. You can even set up sprinklers on Shabbos. Regarding sprinklers, I believe there's a question that okay, here I just wrote yes. I think in the updated version of the book, which just came out, I believe I wrote the following, that there are some poskim of today who question noisy sprinklers. You have some sprinklers that make a lot of noise. You have some of them that do their job quietly, and you have some that make a lot of noise. So we're going to learn in the continuation of the Sif that noisy malachas have a restriction. When you pronounce to the whole world, hey, I'm doing malacha on Shabbos, it's a little different than when you discreetly arrange for a malacha to occur. So let's see.
The dryer example is that?
Exactly. But I think all dryers make noise.
So you shouldn't do that. Okay.
Well, we'll see. Let's finish it. So that's one example. Of al somebody who needs to, put the cucumbers on the eye for refuah. I don't know why it's done, whatever it is. You're allowed to put medicine basically on your body, even though the medicinal effect is occurring on Shabbos itself. Even though it's usher to place it on Shabbos, you're allowed to place it before Shabbos and have it remain into Shabbos. Now, don't say, since you're not allowed to apply medicine on Shabbos, maybe I shouldn't be allowed to apply the medicine before Shabbos and have it work into Shabbos. Answer is no. It's mutter to start something before Shabbos. It's also permitted. Back in the day, they used to get rid of bad odors in the clothing. They used to arrange for clothing to be barbecued under incense.
Barbecue clothing?
They would put it under incense and have the smoke of the incense going into the clothing, and it would give it a good scent. So that was mutter to be done. However, based on this halacha, in the Machaber says, because there is no isser of shrisas kelim on Shabbos, there is no prohibition of having one's vessels rest on Shabbos, as we already discussed. We were like base hillel. However, what about, based on this halacha, if I would like to, you have all types of people. Let's say you're a guy that's into those incense. Those incense sticks, ever use them?
Yeah.
You use them?
No.
Okay, you know them, okay. So let's say somebody's really into them. He wants to set up before Shabbos, of course. He'll set up a really long one. It takes a 5-hour incense stick. It'll be the whole Shabbos, Friday night meal. It'll be very cozy, very, make a nice environment in his meal. Is he allowed to do so? Based on what we just learned, it sounds like it's mutter. Answer is no. There's a separate issue. There's no issue with causing something to continue igniting on Shabbos. That's not our issue. We already said you can start Halacha. Our issue here is that when a person puts up fragrance, we suspect that he may do something. When the whole purpose is just to give out fragrance, we suspect he may do something to enhance it. Exactly. So this is what the Machaber, the Bach writes, and therefore he writes that that this would be problematic. When it's under clothing, we don't suspect you're going to barbecue your clothing, you're going to burn your clothing if you make it too hot. So you don't suspect anyone's going to touch it. But when it comes to incense, we may suspect. But on the other hand, you can say perhaps this applied only when there's coals involved. But if there's no coals, it's just a stick. I mean, they do go out once in a while, and it's, but it's not, I guess it's not as big of a suspicion. So you can argue and want to say that maybe it would be mutter in the case of the sticks. But definitely in the case of coals, if he wants to do it like old school, like we used to do in saunas, we throw some, besides for water, of course, on the stones, we would put, what is it called? No, cloves on the coals, and it would make a very nice misty smell inside the sauna. So that would certainly be usher to do on Shabbos because of the chashash. Another example, to enter barley into a pot and soak it in water. We know that I think barley in water takes how long? 24, 48 hours to begin to sprout, begins growing. So even though the growth is happening on Shabbos, it's not a problem because you started before Shabbos. Back in the day when people used to press their own olives for oil and their own grapes for wine, it is not a problem to begin pressing it before Shabbos. What you would do is you would put the food, the grapes or the olives in the pressing stone. You would put the pressing stone down. It would press it, and throughout the 24 hours, it would ooze the oil or juice. So that if that's occurring on Shabbos, it is not a problem at all. It's mutter. So too, if you own a water mill, that how do water mills work, right? You would build a mill next to a channel of water. The water would act as the current of energy that would make the mill twist, and it would crush and grind the wheat. So what you can do is, before Shabbos starts, you can throw in, 100 kilos of wheat and let it go throughout the whole Shabbos. Come back after Shabbos, you have a whole day's worth of work done. It's mutter. Why? Because you started before Shabbos. Now here starts the Ramah with the issue of, what about noisy malachas? I understand the principle. It's mutter. We rule like Beis Hillel. But let's be honest. If you saw, how would the religious community react if we saw the coffee, company right here? They used to be over here in the industrial zone, the old industrial zone, in the residential area, working on Shabbos. And they say everything's automatic. You see the pumping of the coffee, you smell it.
Or kibbutzim, where they have the automatic cow milking. Is that a similar example?
Okay, well, it is a similar example, but it's different because a cow is a human being, is an animal that has a feeling, it has emotions, it has pain, and therefore, if you wouldn't milk them, the coffee beans would be quite happy if they just remained where they were till months of Shabbos. Right, but the cows would have a serious issue if they weren't pumped. So that's a little different. The Chachamim were lenient for Tzar Baalei Chaim. That's in Siman Shin Hey 305. We'll learn about that. But regarding this, so this is the question. So the Ramah here brings up. So he says the fact that Mechaber rules that a watermill is mutter is a sign that the Mechaber is going in the approach that he doesn't even care if it makes noise. So according to the Mechaber, you can arrange for industrial work to occur on Shabbos, even if it makes noise and everybody knows about it. You started before Shabbos. I don't care. The Ramah is the one who takes issue with this, and this is a difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Some places can argue this and say, no, it's forbidden to crush things in a mill. And not just with the watermill. We don't have any issue specifically with the watermill, but it's in any action that you're having continuing to Shabbos that makes noise, it rumbles, it pronounces to the world that there's a malacha happening on Shabbos. Now, what's the reason? The Alter Rebbe, when he brings this down, explains the following. He says, let's read it inside. In a place, he brings down both opinions of the Mechaber and the Ramah, and he says, in a place where there's no accepted custom otherwise, one is to be stringent to forbid starting any malach on Erev Shabbos. It will continue into Shabbos if the malach will be generating noise on Shabbos. So in a place that's already a custom, like the Mechaber, Sephardim, okay, we're not going to start up with their custom. But any place that doesn't have the custom is supposed to be stringent. And the reason, it says the following, as when the malacha generates noise, it attracts people's attention and causes a belittlement of Shabbos, as people may say, the person began doing the malacha on Shabbos. So this is this is the Alter Rebbe's take on it. He says it's like a maras ayin. People will think that you turned it on Shabbos. I mean, and this is, we're very quick to judge, and that's what it is. I mean, if we saw, as I said, in the case of the coffee factory, starting to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, we smell this coffee brewing. In the factory, we would most likely say that, someone came in and started on Shabbos, and there would be a whole, news report on it right after Shabbos. How can it be? And after you find out, this one happened in Bnei Brak. They had, there was a bakery. They put it on, they set everything up already in the ovens before Shabbos, which is usher anyways, because you can't bake on Shabbos. But the point is that they assumed that someone came in and turned it on when it wasn't the case. Nobody came in. It was all set up to begin with. Still usher to do. The hashkacha took away the hashkacha from the bakery, but the assumption wasn't correct.
Even without that, I mean, it causes a big tircha for everybody. That's not that.
The noise, you're saying. So you're saying the noise?
The noise. What is it? It disturbs the peace
So you want to suggest a legislation to prohibit, so because Shabbos is a Yom Menucha.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a Yom Menucha, day of rest, so maybe we should be hit. So according to that, those beamboat that the children go on down the roads, maybe here you don't see it so often.
Beam what?
A beamba is like a little tricycle that little kids, you know what I'm talking about. In Beitar, you have millions of them. And they go on them and it sounds like a rumble, like an earthquake happening down the road. So should we usher that on Shabbos? So no, 1 second. So believe it or not, And when I used to live in Kiryat Sefer, so this was a major issue, when you have a city that's, when you have a city that's, 40, 50% children, I think 60% under 18. So you have thousands of kids on these bimbot on Shabbos. It's like Shabbos becomes the earthquake of earthquakes. So Rabbi Kessler came out with a psak, which at the time I looked at very strangely, saying that it takes away the menucha from everybody. It's usher to do on Shabbos. It's usher to go on these things on Shabbos because of the noise. That's what he wanted to suggest. But I don't see any halachic basis for that. Again, Al Rebbe's twist on this is not because of the noise that it bothers people, but rather because of the fact that people may do marasayim. But there's also the aspects, just zilzal Shabbos. The Al Rebbe doesn't. It's unclear if this is also his intent, but other places certainly do make this the intent. That even when, in other words, there's the laws of Shabbos and there's a spirit of Shabbos. Even when a person has managed to learn the halachas and he found as they say, the golden path to keep all the poskim happy, but if at the end of the day it's not Shabbos-dik, it's not something that's viewed as fit for Shabbos, so it shouldn't be done. This is what they say. In that case, you're doing it discreetly, nobody knows, it doesn't make noise. No problem. When it's something in Bereish Galei, you're arranging, that your factory is continuing to work throughout Shabbos because you have everything on automatic. It doesn't make sense. And that's why the Gus Moshe, when he was asked about, he was the first posek that I'm aware of that gave an official stamp of heter for the Shabbos clock. The Shabbos clocks first came out, so people.
That recently. That recently.
Well, I think this was from the Lameds or earlier, maybe the
Still pretty
Chas.
recently.
I mean, it came out pretty recently, I'm
Yeah, that's what I
assuming.
mean.
Yeah. So people started using it based on this halacha. What's the problem? And they were right. But Rav Moshe was asked because people were saying, well, okay, if this is the logic and this is allowed, so let me hook up my factories that produce X and Y amount of products every single day on Shabbos as well. I don't have to take off from work. I'll have automatic machines. There was one individual from Australia who owned a big factory who asked Rabbi Moshe this question. There was a few business owners who asked these shilas. There would not be a mir l'nach, there'd be not one guy involved. Nobody would be there. There would just be that they would set it up on clock that it would work. So Rabbi Moshe dealt with it, and he was in a big pickle. What's he going to say? If he says that, no, you can't, so how can you allow Shabbos clocks? What's the difference? If you say that you can, people are working on Shabbos. People are producing products on Shabbos. They have here in Israel all these boycotts. They work on Shabbos, they produce on Shabbos. Just imagine this. So Rabbi Moshe gave a very interesting psak, which has been accepted as halacha, but it's a chiddush of Rabbi Moshe. He says like this, that only those malachas that are considered a necessity to people, and people don't view it like you're fighting Shabbos or belittling Shabbos. On the contrary, you're enhancing Shabbos, is a mutter to use the Shabbos clock. But otherwise, it's considered zilzal Shabbos and you can't. So he said, for example, you can use the Shabbos clock to turn on and off your lights. So you're able to see and go to sleep. That's Einik Shabbos. That helps for Shabbos. You can use your Shabbos clock to turn on your fan, your air conditioner. These things are part of your atmosphere and experience of Shabbos. But to use your Shabbos clock to turn on and off a radio, to use a Shabbos clock to cook your chulent Friday, Shabbos morning, even if, let's say, you have it covered, everything's taken care of. It was, you have no chashash of shemeichata. It's a plata. He says absolutely not.
That's comfort. That's big comfort for Shabbos. That's totally in for Onek Shabbos. Why isn't that?
No, but he says that something that's viewed by people as you're cooking on Shabbos. What do you mean? You just arranged to cook on Shabbos. He says it has to do with this is it has to do with how people look at it. And how people look at things, as we know, you're older than me, so you know this even more than I do, but everybody knows that how people look at things is not necessarily based on logic or understanding. It's just
So the other example too,
often unexplainable.
Turning lights on Shabbos.
But nobody looks at it that way.
Okay.
But let's be honest. If someone walked into your house and saw the Shabbos clock turn off the lights, they will think nothing of it. If they saw your plot to turn on and start cooking your raw chulent, they will go, "This is crazy." It's just it's just how it is. So this was Rav Moshe's chiddush, and based on this, it has become accepted that we do not extend the Shabbos clock heter to anything else, and it's based on this Ramah, that the Ramah here put a stop to the heter by saying, wait 1 second, this is ideally allowed, but not in a case that it can cause a zilzul, a desecration in the eyes of people, a belittlement in the eyes of people to Shabbos. And this is where we put the stop.
Where does the dryer come in? This picture?
Okay, so regarding, let me just make sure I finish reading it.
How often does that idea come into play, Zilzul Shabbos?
It comes in quite often, and it's a very tricky idea, and it's very difficult for Rabbanim and Poskim to balance because there's no real rules to it.
Mhm.
It's also another name for it is called Ovdan Dechel.
Mhm.
There's the Kseisa Shulchan has a whole arichus and a sefer on about Ovdan Dechel, when we apply it, when we don't. There's a number of pages trying to figure out what is this concept of Ovdan Dechel, of mundane activity. It's like we have all the Shabbos Isurim, and then we have a general one called or Zilzul or Ovdan Dechel. They're the same thing.
Marasayan, isn't it all very similar to Marasayan also?
Well, Marasayan also, you know that you can't decree Marasayan in case the sages didn't decree. A person can't just come along and say it's Marasayan. If the sages decreed it, then fine. If the sages didn't decree it, it's not Marasayan. I mean, it may be to you Marasayan, but I don't have to.
It's the same concept, but that's what I'm asking.
I understand. Yes, it's a similar concept, and that's the thing. In this case, there's leeway for people to attach different cases, circumstances that would be under this definition, and therefore they would ask for. We have a number of things in Hilchos Shabbos that we prohibit simply because it's not Shabbostic, and that falls under the. But again, that is very. That's very objective. It's very subjective. You know, one rabbi will look at it this way, another will look at it that way. It's looked at, in very different ways. So there isn't anything solid on that.
Okay. When you get around to the dryer, throw in the dishwasher too, please.
Okay. Let's just finish the sif. The Rama concludes, we follow the Yesh Eisen as I just mentioned. That's also the Alter Rebbe rules that way, as we just read. Mihu. The Makom Seda. However, in the case of loss, Yesh Lahaka. Loss here doesn't mean loss of revenue, otherwise we would allow the companies to be open. Loss here refers to, let's say, if you don't wash these clothing before Shabbos, the stain is going to become permanent. So you need it to soak in your washing machine, etc., anything of the like. It would be mutter.
Mildew, drying mildew, drying for the purpose of preventing mildew, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good example.
Okay.
Yeah. So anytime that it's to prevent a loss of not just a loss of revenue, but a loss of a current gain that you already have, Yesh Lahakel, you're allowed to be lenient. Commission as well, the same information and Dalit, and Alter likewise rules this way. He writes over in the case of loss may be lenient. To doing even a noise-making malacha on Erev Shabbos. Now he brings up the question. Regarding alarm clocks. Now, ever hear of a discrete alarm clock? Would do a very good job. To have a discrete alarm clock. And on this thing, you can have the ability to put your alarm clock on silent. I don't know what the point of that is. But
buzz.
Right. No, this doesn't have buzz. This doesn't shake. So, but normal alarm clocks make noise. That's what they're there for. So the question is, can you set up an alarm clock on Shabbos? Now, I was always melamed chus that all those who come into shul 10, 11 o'clock is because they're very machmir. They follow the Ramah. They don't want to do always making malacha, so they don't set up their alarm clock. So everybody sleeps in. But the Ramah here says, guys, it's mutter. I know I just said noise-making malachas are no good, and alarm clocks make noise. Often we hear neighbors' alarm clocks making noise. But nonetheless, it's mutter, and the reason is because, what's the reason why I said it's asur? Because people may come to think you did it on Shabbos, right? That's what we said in the Alter Rebbe. People may come to think you did it on Shabbos, this is a Shabbos. But with an alarm clock, everybody knows that you didn't wake up Shabbos morning and make the alarm clock make noise. That's just silly. You set it up beforehand. Usually most people have it already set up, they set it up once and it's good to go forever. They don't have to change it anymore. So because everybody knows that nobody does this on Shabbos, it's done beforehand, therefore there is no problem whatsoever, and therefore that's the halacha. It is mutter to set up an alarm clock on Erev Shabbos, have it go off on Shabbos. However, the poskim of today ask, back in the days, the alarm clocks were simple, hitting a bell. They were simple, generic, well-known noises. Over today, you have, this guy has Avram Fried blasting, the other guy has symphony, the other guy has, classic music, Shlomo Karlebach. You have a whole orchestra going on in everybody's house. So, maybe we wouldn't apply it anymore. It sounds like you turn on the radio. It sounds like you turn on, a video, a music video. So because of this, some poskim suggest that you should keep it to Shabbos. On Shabbos day, the tune of the alarm clock should be one of a ring or something like that, and not an actual music. Practically, however, let me see how I concluded this here. I guess it's in the new edition. Okay. Practically, though, it is mutter because people are used to the idea. They know it also goes off usually automatically. I would hope so after 5 minutes, etc. But people understand it. So there isn't such a chashash. But once again, some people say it's better just to use a regular tune.
So a wind-up clock that has no electricity to it is not even in this category. That's fine by anybody's opinion, or no?
Oh, that's a question. Maybe it's even allowed on Shabbos itself.
Maybe, yeah.
Well, then we have the problem of Shema skill. That is discussed in Siman Shinam Zion, where it discusses making noise on Shabbos. That's a different sin. But this is the before Shabbos action.
But certainly a wind-up clock would be okay then, obviously, before Shabbos.
Absolutely, 100%.
Not even doesn't apply even.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the end of the Ramah, the end of this sif of this subject. We're going to fill in some blanks from the Alter Rebbe and other Achreinim, and we're going to begin the next subject.
You got to the dryer and dishwasher?
Oh, so we're going to fill in the blanks.
Here it is.
This is it. We're going to fill in the blanks. We have right here washing machine dryer.
Okay,
Coming up. Okay, so let's first begin. Let's go through, summarize the examples we gave. We read inside. We gave through the example of dye, that mutter to let something dye into Shabbos. Incense, that you're allowed to put fragrance under the clothing, as we said. Traps, you're allowed to set up before Shabbos. Sprinklers, you're allowed to turn on before Shabbos. We added that you can even have it turn on Shabbos itself.
Incense isn't allowed, I thought you said. Oh, incense.
Under clothing.
Oh, under clothing. Okay.
Well, I don't think we do that anymore, but incense on coals would definitely be no good.
Right.
Stick incense, as I said, is questionable. Medicine, we said, is not a problem. An alarm clock, we said, is not a problem. Now, what about the following case? We just had a fire yesterday. There was a fire in Netanya. I don't know if you heard about it. There's a terrible fire in Netanya. Fires are a big worry. Big worry, and people need to take responsibility to prevent them from happening. And especially when you're dealing with candles. Candles are the source of the majority of fires in the United States, home fires in the United States. That's according to the Red Cross. So, we need to take very careful care and responsibility that our candles don't chas v'sholem end up igniting anything. So the question is the following. Can I take a precaution and place water under my candles so if they fall, they die? They extinguish. Why not?
Yeah.
Can I do that on Shabbos?
Oh.
So let's see.
Why not?
The halacha is the following. It's forbidden on Shabbos to place a glass of water, a bowl of water, under your candle for the sake of it catching the sparks, as you're causing it to ignite those sparks sooner.
Ignite?
Extinguish, sorry.
Extinguish, okay.
To extinguish the spark sooner. If it's an empty bowl, you're doing nothing. So it's okay. But if it's a bowl with water, you're causing it to extinguish sooner than it would have, and therefore it is forbidden to be done on Shabbos. Furthermore, the Alter Rebbe brings in Siman Reish Samech Hey that it's forbidden to do so even on Erev Shabbos. It's forbidden even on Erev Shabbos to put a bowl of water next to your candles for the sake of it catching it, so it doesn't ignite anything. What's the reason? He says that it's forbidden due to a decree that if we allow this to be done on Erev Shabbos, people would say, I can do this on Shabbos also. There's no difference. I'm not doing anything. I've done no malacha. I've done nothing wrong. It's just a precaution. I don't even know if the candle is going to fall. And Alter Rebbe says the following. Since Now, even though we don't generally make this rule, we haven't said this at any time before. We had a whole simon here that we're learning about that you're allowed to do things in Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. Now, one time did we mention this concept of, oh, people are going to think you can do it on Shabbos, so we're not going to allow you to do it. Why so? So it says the following. As this Shabbos prohibition is not very well known, did you know? Did you not? Before we just learned it?
I think I read it, but it's very hazy.
You're
Is
not allowed
okay.
to do on Shabbos
Right.
before Shabbos.
Being that people think since the water is being placed before the sparks fall, it should therefore be permitted, and therefore the Chachamim upped their ante, and they said even before Shabbos you can't do it. So everyone knows it can't be done. And that's the halacha. The halacha is that you cannot set up water. So this is the one case example of where, aside from noise making halachas, of course, that we already learned about that have a restriction, that you're not allowed to start a malacha before Shabbos, even though it's going to happen on Shabbos. And here, you didn't even start the malacha, you just put a bowl there, that's not a malacha. But the intent of it is to catch the spark and extinguish it so it's no good. So, Tachlis, what do you do in such a case if you're worried about, if there's a real worry? So let me answer. If there is a real worry that something can become ignited and catch a fire, then pikuach nefesh pushes everything away. Certainly pushes away rabbinical decree before Shabbos. Right? On the other hand, pikuach nefesh. On the other hand, convenience doesn't push away issa d'Rabbanan and certainly not issa d'Oraisa. So, if somebody asks me, I'm super paranoid about my candles, causing a fire. Can I extinguish them on Friday night? It's pikuach nefesh. I answer them, what's the pikuach nefesh of you staying up the whole night watching your candles? If you sit there watching your candles, what do you mean? I need to sleep.
He didn't say anything.
Well, no, I'm trying to explain that you have to take pikuach nefesh. You can't create a situation pikuach nefesh and ask if this pikuach nefesh. It's like pikuach nefesh has to be that it's against your will. But if you have the ability of, let's say, sitting up and watching the candles, then your candles don't enter pikuach nefesh. So for this reason, we don't have the ability of being mechalel Shabbos, breaking the rabbinical decree, just because you want to go to sleep, or just because Al Tebet and Hilchos Yom Kippur brings, even to ask a guy, you're not allowed. Stay up. You just stay up and shul. Stay up and watch the candles. What do you need? What's the pikuach nefesh here? It's pikuach nefesh for you not to sleep. For some people, maybe become very grouchy. But anyways, okay. So the Alter Rebbe continues and says, likewise, it is forbidden on Shabbos to place water under a wax candle. So let's say you want to do this week's hook about putting a bowl next to the candle. You want to put the wax candle inside a bowl of water. And when it reaches the level of the water, it will extinguish. So, of course, absolutely this would be forbidden to be done based on what we just explained and to the reason that we explained. You can't do it on Shabbos. It's a light Isser. People may come to do so before Shabbos as well. So what about some people who still use oil candles to light Shabbos candles? Yeah, most people still use wax, but those people who still use oil or the other chemical liquid, whatever it's called, can you put water under it? Yeah? Why?
I don't know why you would be allowed. You mean
Didn't we just learn in the previous two halachas that it's also?
For the purpose of catching the sparks or getting them out?
Well, why do people put water under the oil?
Well, the first case you said,
why do people do it?
Sparks. Sparks worries.
When in order to keep the floating wick horizontal, otherwise it will, in the end, it will tip over and it will the glass will burst.
You're talking about putting water in the actual cup with the oil.
Well, I'm a very well experienced Hanukkah lighter, and I use bowls with oil. I never put water in. I never had this issue. Not the issue of drowning wicks, and not the issue of exploding glasses. So maybe I'll give you the companies I use.
Okay, so oil is different. We don't know why yet.
So most people. So there's two reasons why people do it. Okay, one reason is because we don't want to use up so much oil. We want to go out at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, wanted to go extinguish earlier, not have the issue of staying up all night to watch my candles. I don't want to leave them unsupervised. So they put water to lift it up. So you put, half of it water, half of it oil, and it's raised. So it looks nice, it looks beautiful. It's not sunk inside the little bulb. That's one reason. Another reason is so it extinguishes. So the question is it allowed? So the Alter Rebbe here says the following: however, permitted to place water in an oil candle in order to elevate the oil. It's mutter. Furthermore, the custom is to be willing to allow one to place water under the oil, even if he intends to extinguish the wick, to prevent the flame from damaging the glass of the vessel. I think that's what you're referring to. So,
We're talking about Shabbos candles.
yeah, Shabbos candles, but oil Shabbos candles.
We still don't
Okay,
know.
and what's the reason that it's mutter? He says the following: because let's be honest, how will this wick reach the water when it loses the oil? When it loses the oil, it will extinguish automatically, irrelevant to the water. So it's not the water that's extinguishing it, it's the lack of oil extinguishing. It's not like the wax candle case where it would have continued burning another half hour if not for the water level. It's not like the spark. Oh, we still have some time.
This is 11:24 here. This is wrong.
This is way
Oh,
wrong.
that's the date. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So just say why it's not like the sparks.
Why it's not like the spark? Yeah, because the sparks, once again, they would have lasted longer if they just fell into an empty bowl. They would have taken a few seconds. Even the few seconds of the life of a spark is forbidden to chop off on Shabbos, to cause it to end on Shabbos.
So we're saying that the water, once the oil is out, you would go up anyway.
Correct. That's the svara the Alter Rebbe brings, and therefore he says that while that you may think, based on the halacha we just learned, hey, so if you can't even put a bowl of water next to the candle, certainly I can't put water inside the bulb itself. So he says, no, by an oil candle it's mutter because you're actually not causing it to extinguish by placing the water, even if that's your intent. By the time it reaches it, the oil's gone. It can't live
I
anymore.
thought the oil sample was where you're putting the oil actually in the water, extra water in the cup itself.
Correct.
The thing.
Correct.
The other example is where you're putting water underneath as a safety net.
Correct.
So,
There's no issue with the one inside. You got that?
yeah, but if you were to put water in a bowl underneath your oil.
Correct, because
you were
what's
to-
your intent?
That's the
If
same.
it falls, the fire falls, it falls inside and gets extinguished.
So that's not allowed. That's not allowed.
So here I did make a footnote over here. I said before regarding pikuach nefesh, and I said you can just stay up all night. The Rabbi brings, in the name of the Issa V'Heter, also the Mishnah Berurah brings this, that in the case that there is worry of danger, then one may on Erev Shabbos go ahead and place water there to prevent the candles from falling. So let's say you're going away. You're going away for the meal.
Yeah.
So what the best thing in such a case is just like candles, where you're going for the meal.
Totally impractical. You're going
Why
across
impractical?
town a 20-minute walk and you're going to run over there and then.
Go there
back.
before. Get ready before Shabbos. Yeah, go before Shabbos. What's the
Not so
problem?
simple in households. They take their families and go candlelighting time to the place they're going.
Okay, well, it's
spend 2 hours
certainly is
there and,
doable. If I'm a big family and we're able to do it, so I'm sure other people can do it. Anyway, so that's a separate issue. But if that's the situation, you are lighting where you are, and you are worried, and I agree, you should be worried. The best thing is just to light. If you light it on a counter, then nothing will happen. Nothing's flammable. So that's the best thing. But when you light it, if there is a worry of it catching, so bottom line is that if there's a real worry, you can be lenient in such a case. That's what he writes.
Who is that rabbi who you just quoted?
El Rabbi, he was the chief rabbi of Prague in the 1600s before.
So why is he allowed to just all of a sudden come and say it's okay after all this energy being put on saying it's not okay?
Well, the Alter Rebbe's psak is not agreed by everybody. It's under quite debate.
So the Alter Rebbe is citing this rabbi. And
No, the
saying-
Alter Rebbe doesn't bring in a case of danger. He doesn't discuss the case. He just says generally.
Oh, okay.
Here the question again. Here I guess the question was, what's the chiddush of the rabbi? Just of course, pikuach nefesh you can put out a fire on Shabbos. We've spoken this a few times today. All fires are pretty much pikuach nefesh. Put them out. So what's the shaila? So I guess what you're saying the shaila is that can we force you to stay home, or can we say you can go home and enter the situation? As I said before. So before Shabbos, suddenly you can be lenient. washing machine and dryers, and the dishwashers. So all these things, since they make a lot of noise, unless you attached unless you have one that's a quiet one, I don't know if they exist, then it would be usher because people hear it. People hear it. Ad kedei kach that you have court cases here in Israel that I've seen of neighbors complaining of other neighbors putting on their washer and dryer between 2 and 4, and they can't sleep. Believe it or not. So it definitely generates noise, and being that that's the case, it would not be allowed. However, Sephardim have a greater leniency, right? So you can ask your Sephardi neighbor to do your clothing Erev Shabbos into Shabbos. Sephardim would have a greater leniency, as we said, as they didn't have this stringency of noise-making malachas, as well as in a case of great need. We said it's mutter, right? The makam hefset. So let's say you need to travel half hour after Shabbos, you have to leave. And you need these clothing done. So it's a case of loss. In such a case, it would be allowed. In any of these type of cases, that would be a case of loss of time after Shabbos. That
the stain, the mildew, that all.
All those cases would be allowed. Now, with the washing machine dryer, we have those cases. But what's the loss regarding a dishwasher? What's the problem if you just leave your dirty dishes there until Motzei Shabbos? What's going to happen?
That's terrible. Right.
Okay.
Now, this is just a case of this is not in the spirit of Shabbos, or is it mamash has the weight of like halacha?
No, this is the Ramah's ruling. And if it Ramah brought out to Rebbe, that brings an opinion. We paskin that way unless there's an accepted custom otherwise. Now, what about arranging a Shabbos clock to turn on a radio, television, or TV? Yeah, we're almost done. So, minadin, it seems, should be permitted, right? We said you can arrange for the malacha to happen on Shabbos if you did it before Shabbos. Obviously, this would challenge the Shabbosdik, the Avirah, the Zilzal Shabbos, and based on the Zilzal Shabbos, all the poskim paskin that it's usher. So those people who, there's a World Series game or the, playoff game, and, they can't miss it, it's mamish bikuach nefesh, and they want to leave it on. I remember I grew up like this in Miami, as people used to do in modern Orthodox community. People would leave their televisions on, closed, and, they would watch it Friday night. They would open it up and close it.
Allowed to watch a TV Friday night?
So they would claim, I'm not breaking any Shabbos law. What Shabbos law am I breaking? There's an issur of focusing eyes on a screen on Shabbos.
I don't know. It's a good question. I often wonder, like you're walking by in a storefront in a busy place, and there's a game on, and from you want to take a peek at how the
Right,
World
so,
Series
yeah.
going.
There's no issur in doing it.
Really? That's interesting.
It doesn't bring very good luck. Yes, my friends once came to this in Shiva in Miami. It was Friday night, and it was, we had a lot of New Yorkers there. And it was the New York Knicks versus the Miami Heat. It was 1999 playoffs, and it was Friday night game. And they told me that the Heat are winning. So I was, seduced to come with them to watch. We went to somewhere in Collins Avenue, and just as I came, they started losing. They lost the game.
Okay, we on there. Okay, gotta go. We gotta go more. Sure, you gotta set up, break down.